Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Fostering community and building local capacity and vibrancy in rural towns is no easy task, but that is what the Vermont Council on Rural Development was created to do. And under the 21-year leadership of newly retired Executive Director Paul Costello, numerous Vermont communities and towns have discovered unique ways to thrive and ride the waves of change. We are pleased that Paul is joining us to look back and to celebrate his impressive tenure. Thank you so much for joining us, Paul.
Thank you, Fran. It's so great to be on the show again. I think this is about the 20th time I've been on Across the Fence, and we really appreciate the long partnership with you and UVM Extension.
Exactly, terrific, and so much on the Working Landscapes program, but we'll get to that in a minute. So first, for the few people that might not know, how did Vermont Council on Rural Development, or VTRD, come about, and how's it funded?
We're a state rural development council, so we were established by the federal government way back, probably 25 years ago. And the idea was to get everyone working together outside of their silos and across political lines for the common good of rural communities. And so we connect to the congressional offices, we connect to the governor's cabinet, we connect to local folks in local communities. And that brings this rich dialogue internally that helps us set direction as a community organizer and a policy facilitator.
Terrific, and most of those 25 years have been under your tenure. So how did you determine what needed VTRD's attention through all these years?
Well, we ask people. We don't look into a crystal ball, and we don't think we know better than the people we serve. We are the most experienced community facilitating organization, I think, in Vermont. We've brought scores of thousands of people together to set priorities locally. And then our board, which is a true council, looks at what comes up repeatedly. What are the fundamental things that villages and towns are struggling with, from the future of agriculture to downtown buildings to building better communications to get things done. And we add those things up, and we look at areas that need convening across party lines again and across the silos of bureaucracy to line up strategies that can help everyone work together to drive significant change at the state level. And we've done that with summits and retreats and year-long policy councils that have engaged people of all sorts throughout the state of Vermont in the last generation.
All right, so in the last 2 decades, while you've been in leadership, you've held at least one councilor summit per year, principally focused on the future and broad initiatives like the Working Landscape or Climate Change Economy. What has a focus on the future? Why has that focus been such an important focus for your work, and how does that help the state?
Well, it's a little bit like when you want to bring people together, you could hold sessions around like the public engagement. Let's talk about what's wrong. Let's talk about our problems. But what really engages people is to talk about what can be done and the future and how things can be made better. And so we're constantly asking people, what's the future in your community? What are the 2 or 3 things that you should do in your town to drive change that will attract new residents, boost the economy, support the quality of life, whatever it is that you think is most important. And at the state level, we say, what are the key strategy areas that are most fundamental to the future of rural communities? And let's line those up together. So we did the Council on the Future of Vermont. We did sessions on the future of the creative economy, the future of agriculture. And now we're doing this proposition for the future of Vermont that adds up some of what we've learned over the last 20 years, and then what we've learned from over 4,000 people that we've interviewed or who have sent propositions to us recently to set up a holistic platform of where Vermonters think the state needs to go in the next 3 years. What do we need to do to be successful? And that's what we rally to. That's what binds us together in a democracy is what's our destination? What are we going to put ourselves on line for in the future?
And it's much more than just talk. You certainly need to move towards action. So what changes to Vermont towns have you experienced that you feel are most significant to Vermont's identity and our future?
Well, there have been some tough things that have happened. The challenge to dairy agriculture, the challenge to manufacturing in rural Vermont, the loss of youth in different parts of rural Vermont. So there's been challenges, but there's also, this brilliant resurgence in creativity in agriculture, in the arts, in small tech, in people working from home, in people, availing opportunities in the global economy through broadband, through democratic participation in the renewal of their downtowns and their villages. We've got some challenges with higher education and the demographic loss of youth that affects their viability. But we also have some really strong institutions in Vermont and that attract a lot of bright young people from outside of the state. And hopefully we can help more of them stay. But you see it mostly town to town. When we go into these towns, it's extremely powerful to see people set directions kind of across their vocations, across the municipality and the different businesses and individuals that lift everyone up and that set this atmosphere of progress and hard work on particulars, redeveloping a downtown building, building a new daycare center, whatever it is. People rally forward in Vermont to make changes that will benefit the future of their communities.
Sure, and they certainly rallied with this pandemic, and the council, was very quick to support towns and needs during the pandemic. The council led 18 virtual workshops with nearly 1,000 participants to share best practices. How did the last 20 years of your support and community visits help with this current effort? And what was the significant outcome of that work in your opinion?
Boy, what a great question. I mean, that's a long one. We were teed up to go to Barrie. We were teed up to go to other communities when in March of 2020, and everything collapsed in terms of our work plan. And in about 2 days, we saw all these groups springing up around the state that were trying to do mutual aid. They were trying to deliver food. They were trying to support people in quarantine. Eventually building, making masks, looking at the needs of their neighbors and how to stay in touch, and then opening their downtowns again. And so we started coordinating best practices between those groups, not thinking we knew better, but thinking that a backbone for that effort could be really useful. Then we brought together statewide and regional service providers. How do we best serve them? How do we look at duplications and overlap? How do we learn from each other and work as a team? And ultimately, the governor asked us to chair his local solutions part of the task force for recovery. And great honor. We put ourselves into it full bore. And, it was tough, but it was also being ready because of all our history of facilitating and history of community work, knowing the players statewide, and having the credibility, I think, because we know how to run a good business meeting. and all that came together in us having one of the most intense and I think effective years in one of the most challenging periods of recent Vermont history. And so we're glad we turned quickly. And of course, we're not done with recovery, and we need to think not just about the recovery of individuals and one town after another. We have to think systemically about what we've learned, especially in the face of climate change, which is going to have similar imperatives, and it's going to take similar scientific, rational management to successfully address and to lead so that our economy is benefited as we build a state that develops solutions to climate change step by step, business to business, town to town, so that we're successful in the future.
It's a big one. So your humility is legendary, but before we end, what are you most proud of?
I guess, in so many meetings, we're there at the end of the night, or in all these COVID recovery meetings. And I guess the thing that I'm most proud of is looking, you look out at a screen of people on Zoom, or you look out at a town meeting, and you just see people who are so online, so dedicated to Vermont, dedicated to their communities and their neighbors. And it makes me really proud to be a Vermonter. It makes me proud of the power that we have to do good in this democracy. And it's not guaranteed. Democracies participate participation sport. It's not something you watch on TV, and it's not something you're done with one vote a year. It's really lining up to make your town and your community, your region, your state as successful as possible. And that's people don't use the word patriotism very much. It's not a Republican word. It's not a Democratic word. It's about how we stand together as a people. And right now in this country, we need to stand together, and we need to address issues from racism to climate change with unity. And so being in that position makes me very proud of our organization, but even more of the people that we serve and what we see happening in these communities.
So then what are Vermont's greatest challenges in the coming decade?
I think we have to answer the economic doldrums by being innovative, but also recognizing the diversity of kinds of businesses, small businesses that develop, and working lands businesses, the farm and forest ecosystem that provides a foundation for our economy. But we also have to be open to change, and we have to be open to different sorts of people. Vermont is one of the whitest states in the United States. Part of our success is going to be how welcoming we are, how much we open up our sense of neighborliness to give a deep feeling of belonging to the full diversity of people who could live here. And that means, that may mean refugees, but it may also mean immigrants from neighboring states across the country that we welcome, and that will bring creativity and dynamism to rural places that frankly need that. I think the climate issue is another issue that's just fundamental. Vermont has an opportunity with clean energy development, the working land state innovation, smart grid development, battery storage companies, electric flight businesses that are forming in Vermont, that we have a constellation of creativity that if we nurture it and if we support it and even brand ourselves around it, we can capture the imagination of purposive youth and entrepreneurs and build an economy that is known as a place, known for its development of climate solutions.
We hope so. We're already out of time, Paul. For more information about the Vermont Council on Rural Development, you can visit www.vtrural.org or call 802-223-6091. Thank you so much, Paul, for joining us today and for all you have done for Vermont, and all the best to you as you move on, and good luck to your new leader.
Thank you, Fran. I really appreciate everything you've done for us.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us across the fence. I'm Fran Stoddard. Stay well.